Hello, I'm Professor Dale, and I'm going to be your instructor for Math 402, which is Calculus 3. Welcome to the course. The approach that we're going to be taking to this course is obviously going to be different than if we were meeting in person. Due to COVID, as you know, we have to be meeting online for this course, and because it's not really my comfort zone teaching online, I'm approaching this by trying to be as efficient and streamlined and simple as possible. So I'll kind of indicate what I mean by that when we start to go through this syllabus. But that's what I want to do now. I want to cover the syllabus, give you an idea of what to expect in this course, and hopefully start us off on the right foot. So again, my name is Nick Dale. I'm your instructor. Here's my email address. This is my office number, but it doesn't really matter because I'm not going to be in my office this semester. The campus is closed, so you can feel free to ignore that if you want. The textbook that we're going to be using for this course is Calculus Early Transcendentals by James Stewart. It's the 8th edition. If you've been taking calculus, Calc 1 and Calc 2 at Sac City, you should probably already have this book. That's what we use for those courses as well. This book should cover the full breadth of Calculus 1 through 3. So it should go all the way. We're going to cover everything from chapters 12 through 16 in that book. But if you do not have the book yet, make sure you get it. We're going to be doing all of the homework out of that book. And the lectures follow the book pretty closely, so it's important to have that. Now, below the textbook here is a description of the course. I'm not going to read through this. This is just the regular catalog description of Calculus 3. You will see here, though, that you do want some form of a calculator, whether graphing or scientific. I do recommend a TI 83 or 84. However, because we're operating online and not in person, you can also use a calculator, on your computer or something like that. These can be fairly expensive, and if you don't already have one, you may not want to buy one, and that's fine. Let's go down here. These are the student learning outcomes for the course, and below that is my motto for this course, which says, remember, math is not a spectator sport. Nobody becomes proficient at math simply by listening to lectures. The key to success is practice, practice, practice. This is Calculus 3, so you should know this already, but you really do not learn math by just watching videos, which is essentially what you're doing in this class for the lectures. Even the best explainer of mathematics is not going to give you any form of mastery over it. You have to get your hands dirty, you have to do the work, or when we get to test time, you're going to be stumped. That's just how that works. Okay, so I don't think I need to say anything more on that. Let's go ahead and jump into the way the class will be structured. Like I said before, I'm choosing to keep things very, very simple as I can or feel comfortable doing in this kind of a setup. So the way that we're going to do lectures in this course, there's not going to be any specific meeting times. The course is going to be taught asynchronously. And basically what that means is that I'm going to pre-record lecture videos, and I'm going to post them on Canvas. Now the videos are actually on my YouTube channel, but I'm embedding them in some pages on Canvas for you to see. All of the material that we're going to be covering within a given week is going to be posted in a module on Canvas. So at the very beginning of the first week of the course, you're going to see a module pop up that says Week 1. And in that module, you're going to see all of the lecture videos that cover the material for that week, as well as all of the lecture notes that I use in those videos. I scan them and I upload them so you can use those. The homework, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is just going to be whatever homework would be. It would be whatever sections are on the material that were covered for that week. But again, I'm going to go into more detail on that in a little bit. So because I'm uploading an entire week's worth of lectures at the beginning of each week, it's up to you to pace yourself however you choose to. I don't recommend waiting until the last minute because there's a substantial amount of material to cover in this course, but it kind of gives you some options, some flexibility about how you watch through the lecture videos and go over the material. Now, there's a complication that arises with doing pre-recorded videos in this way, and that's that you don't really get to ask questions the same way that you would in an in-person setting. You know, if I'm in the middle of a lecture and I'm covering some particular topic and it's confusing and you would need clarification, you don't have the option of raising your hand and asking for help, unfortunately. So the way that I'm going to handle questions is by using the discussion forums that are built into Canvas. On our Canvas page, you'll see on the side, the little tabs on the side, there's going to be one called Discussions. And in that Discussions tab, I'm going to put a discussion topic for every lecture video, or sorry, every chapter that we cover in the class. And again, that's chapters 12 through 16. And in fact, each chapter is going to have 2 discussion topics. One will be for the lecture videos, and you can ask questions about the lectures themselves there. And another topic will be for homework problems. If you need help with homework, which is something you would normally come into my office hours on campus to do, you can instead ask those questions on those discussion forums. Now, I'm really insisting that you reserve questions on either homework or lecture videos strictly for the discussion forums. Please, please, please do not email me with questions on lecture videos or homework. And that's for a couple of reasons. One, Calculus 3 in particular uses a lot of symbols that are very, very difficult to replicate in email. So if you ask a question that you need clarification on, in all likelihood, I'm not going to be able to sufficiently type out the symbols that we need. But the discussion forums in Canvas provide the tools to be able to do that. So it's much easier for me to communicate mathematically in those discussion forums. The second reason I want you to do that is because whatever questions and answers are given in the discussion forum are visible to everybody in the class. You know, some topics are more difficult than others. So there may be a lecture video that you come across, and I may get 20 students asking me the same question. I genuinely do not have the time to answer the same question 20 times. I want to put it in one place where everybody can see it. It's the same thing as if we were in class and I answered a question in front of the whole class. It's just we use a discussion forum for that purpose. So when using the discussion forums, I'm also going to ask that you be very, very specific with questions. So I'm going to give 2 examples, one for a lecture video, one for a homework problem. Let's suppose we're covering section 13.1 and you're watching the lecture videos for that section. There's usually a few parts for each section. So like, you know, the videos will come in part 1, part 2, part 3, or however many parts there are. And you're getting confused by an example I'm working through. Please don't go into the discussion forum and say, can you explain that example from section 13.1 again? It's confusing. That's really confusing to me, actually, because if section 13.1 is uploaded in 4 different videos, I don't know which video you're talking about. I don't know which example you're talking about. If you're not going to be specific, you're not going to get an answer from me. What you need to do in a case like that is say, hey, you know, in the 13.1 video, part 3, right at the 7-minute mark, you do this example, and I'm confused about this step. Can you explain that to me? That tells me exactly where to go and look where to see where it is you're getting confused or where you have a question. So tell me what video you have a question on, and tell me what the time code is, roughly at least, where your question is coming from. Okay, so that's like a lecture video example. Now, suppose you have a homework question. For homework questions, what I'm going to ask that you do is be specific, not only on the problem number and section that you're struggling with, but also on what it is you've already tried in the problem. I'm not a huge fan of when a student gives me a vague question or simply says, can you help me with problem 13? Because I don't know what it is about problem 13 that you're struggling with. And it's true, there are some problems where right from the get-go, you know, you have no idea how to start, and you've tried looking at the book and looking over the notes, and you're confused on where to go. And that's okay, just say that in the question. I don't know how to start this problem. But if you have started it and you're getting stuck on a particular step, tell me what you tried. And then I can help you in a more, efficient and specific way. But I'll just say this, oftentimes vague questions are going to intentionally get vague answers. You need to be specific or you're not going to get as much help. One more thing about discussion forums before we move on. The forums are, again, accessible to all students in the class. And what I would encourage you to do is to attempt to answer other questions, students' questions. So again, if somebody is struggling with problem number 13 in section 14.5 or whatever it is, but you think you know how to do that problem, feel free to chime in. Offer some help to another student. Oftentimes students learn better from other students than they do from the instructor. So I don't want to be your only source of information. Now, if there's a question that's been posted on the discussion forum and it's not getting answered, I'll go in and help. But just to be transparent, my time is very limited. Teaching from home the way that I'm doing right now is a lot more difficult than teaching from the classroom. I have 2 kids at home. I have a puppy that's barking all the time. My wife is here, and it's very busy in my house. And you're going to hear some of that in the lecture videos. You're going to hear kids yelling in the background. You're going to hear, a dog barking occasionally, and that's just the reality of our situation, unfortunately. But my time is limited, so I'm going to help everywhere I can, but I may not have the freedom to get to a question as quickly as another student might. And so it's very, very helpful for you guys to work together. I really strongly encourage that. Okay, enough on the discussion forums. Let's talk about the scanner part of this syllabus here. So even though the course is being held online, I'm not using any homework websites or any software or anything like that. I'm not using My Math Lab or those sorts of things. The homework and the exams are all going to be handwritten the way that they would be in a traditional math course. But what that means is you need to be able to submit handwritten work in an online format. And the way that you do that for our class is you scan it and then you submit it in the appropriate assignment submission on Canvas. Some of you might have a hardware scanner, like a printer scanner combo or something similar. And if you have that, that's great. But I realize most people probably don't have one of those at home. Unfortunately, if you have a smartphone, which most everybody does these days, there's plenty of free apps available for scanning, just using your phone's camera. And they actually work very well from what I've seen. So what I recommend to students, a lot of my students who took my summer course or last spring when we moved to online, most of my students were using Cam Scanner. And this is free. They had a lot of success with that. I recommend that. I personally use Dropbox. Just because I already use Dropbox for storing files and things like that. But the Dropbox app has a scanner built into it that works really, really nicely. So those are good options. There's plenty of other options that you're welcome to try. But here's what you need your scanner to be able to do. Whether it's an app or a hardware scanner or whatever it is you're using, it needs to be able to do 2 things. One, the files need to be saved as PDFs. I absolutely do not want you sending me a bunch of pictures, a bunch of JPEGs of your homework. That's not how it works. You need to have a PDF of your homework assignment. And in addition to that, all of the homework assignments that you submit should be multiple pages long. If it's only 1 page long, you're probably not doing enough work. That said, I don't want several single-page files. You're only going to be submitting 1 file for each homework assignment, and that means you need to be able to save your PDFs as multiple pages. You need to know how your scanner functions when it comes to taking multi-page scans. Now, at the beginning of the semester, I'm going to create a sample assignment to get you practice on doing that if you haven't done that before. And it'll be very straightforward. There's going to be like a 2-page thing that I want you to scan and submit to me, and then that's going to be that. Okay? One last thing on this. When you're submitting homework or exams, which are the 2 things that you'll be scanning, please, please, please look over your scan, look over your PDF before submitting it. You're looking for a couple of things here. One, are any of your pages blurry or difficult to read? I like I said, I've been doing this the past couple of semesters that we've been online, and I would get a handful of students who would submit a PDF that has, say, like 12 pages in it, and one or two of the pages is very, very blurry and difficult to read, or just completely unreadable at all. That can happen for a few different reasons. The smartphone apps that we use, or that a lot of my students were using to scan their assignments, will sometimes produce a blurry page if your lighting is not very good in the room that you're doing the scanning, or if your phone is moving too much when you're trying to take the scan. It can cause like a blurring effect sometimes. So for whatever the reason, if you have blurry pages, you need to rescan that assignment before you submit it. I don't want to squint and destroy my eyes trying to read whatever it is you turned in. The other thing for homework assignments, make sure that your assignments are in order. And this usually isn't a problem. Most people just do this anyways, but occasionally I get homework assignments that are bizarrely kind of out of order. The pages don't go from, like, for example, if the homework assignment is sections 12.1 through 12.4, make sure that the order of the sections goes from 12.1 to 12.2 to 12.3 to 12.4. Don't jumble them up. If they're jumbled up, I'm not even going to bother looking at it. I don't have the time for that. I'm going to tell you, scan it again in the correct order and then submit it again, and then I'll look at it. Okay, that covers that. Let's talk about homework next. In a normal course, if we were meeting online, I would have a few different categories of things that I grade you on. I normally have homework assignments, exams. There's a final exam, and then in addition to that, I usually do warm-up problems at the beginning of a class, and I do quizzes periodically, once every week or two. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I want to keep things as simple as possible, and so I'm sort of trimming things down a bit, and keeping this to a very small number of categories. So basically, the only things you'll be graded on over the semester are homework assignments, exams, and your final exam, and that's it. There's no quizzes, there's no warm-up problems anymore. It's just those things, and that should keep things simple, streamlined, and relatively straightforward. For that reason, homework is worth a lot more than it would have been in a face-to-face class. It's worth 30% of your grade. Now it's relatively I don't want to say it's relatively easy. It's fairly straightforward the way that I grade homework. I don't do it based on accuracy. Because of time restrictions, there's absolutely no way I can go through your homework and tell you or grade based on accuracy, correct answers, things like that. I grade based on completeness. So I scan your homework, I look through it and I look to see, did you try everything that I assigned? And in addition, do your problems look like you just wrote answers down from the back of the book or from some website or something like that, or did you actually try it? Based on that criteria, if it looks like you tried everything, you get full credit for it, and that's that. I don't accept any late assignments, and the way that I collect homework, I collect it on a weekly basis. So I'll assign homework week by week, and you'll actually have a homework assignment sheet on Canvas that gives you the full set of homework problems for the whole semester, and then I'll collect specific sections each week. So whatever material we cover in a week, those are the homework. That's the homework assignment, or those sections will make up the homework assignment that's due the following Monday. So homework assignments are collected on Mondays, no later than 11:59 p.m. And like I said before, when you scan them, they have to be submitted as a single PDF file through Canvas. And you'll see due dates pop up on your Canvas calendar, and it'll show you which assignments are due and stuff like that. So it should be fairly straightforward. Each section worth of problems that you do is worth 5 points, and again, that's all based on completeness. Okay, think that's all I need to say on homework. Let's talk about exams next. We're going to have 4 exams over the course of the semester, not counting the final. And I do drop your lowest test score. I don't offer any extra credit. It doesn't matter how much I say that, I always get students asking for extra credit at the end of the semester, and the answer is invariably no, I don't do it. So this is the safety net that I offer. I will drop your lowest test score, which means I'm only taking your top 3 exam scores. With that said, also, if you find that for some reason you're unable to take a test on a particular day, or if you just decide you don't want to take a test, that's fine. That's going to be the one that gets dropped. I will give you a 0 on it if you don't take an exam, but it's going to be the score that gets dropped. Just bear in mind that you had better do pretty well on the other 3 exams if you want to get a good grade in the course. Okay, let's see. Exams, I always give 2 hours and 15 minutes for exams. The exams are written to be roughly 2-hour exams. The extra 15 minutes that you get for exams is there for you to have time to scan it and submit it, because your exams, like I said before, are handwritten, and you need to be able to have time to scan it, submit it, and also account for any technical difficulties that may arise. So the past couple of semesters that I've been doing this online thing, in almost every test I get a student who says, my internet cut out at the last minute, or Canvas is having some issue where it's not letting my assignment upload, or whatever it is. The extra 15 minutes is to help you account for those technical difficulties. Now, with that said, you may run into a technical difficulty that you can't resolve in time. So if you're finding that you've finished your exam, you still have time on the clock, and you're trying to upload it, and it's not working for whatever reason, email the exam to me immediately. So if you scanned it and you have a PDF of the file, email it to the email address that I showed you at the beginning of the video, and I'm able to see on my end when you started an exam in Canvas, and I can correlate that to the time on the email that you send me, so I can determine if you've completed the exam in the allotted time or not. But that said, don't email me an exam unless you're having that technical difficulty, or unless I ask you for some specific reason to do that. I don't want 35 exams showing up in my email. It's only for that kind of emergency purpose. Okay. Let's see. Exams are worth 50% of your grade cumulatively, and I am going to do a sample exam at the beginning of the course, which is not counted amongst your exam score here, but the purpose of that sample exam is just to give you practice with how exams work in this course, where to find the exam, how to start it, complete it, and submit it, and I'll give you more information on that when we get to that point. Okay, that's it for exams, I believe. Actually, no, I'll come back to that in a minute. Let's talk about the final exam. Final exam is cumulative. It's going to cover everything that we've covered in the course, and it's going to account for 20% of your grade. That's very standard, 20%. Because it's going to be longer than a normal exam, you get 3 hours and 15 minutes instead of the 2 hours and 15 minutes for a typical exam. Not much more to say on that. We can talk more about the final as we approach it towards the end of the semester. Here's my grading scale. It's the traditional one, and here's a breakdown again of the percentages for each one of those categories of collected work. All right, almost done. Let's talk about cheating for a moment. So you can read my little blurb here on cheating. This really just applies to exams, and rather than kind of just recite my policy here, I want to share an example with you that just occurred during my summer course that I just taught. So over the summer, I taught a course, and I gave an exam, and when I collected the exam and started grading them, I noticed several students getting very, very similar looking answers on one specific question. And not only were they getting very similar answers, but the question was answered in a way that looked nothing like anything I taught in class. It was a valid answer, but it used techniques that were not covered in class. So that was really suspicious to me. Now, just so you're aware, I know virtually all of the sites that people go to get homework and exam help. I know about Chegg. I know about Slater. I have accounts on those sites, and I'm able to access all of that stuff. And I do. I actually frequently use those sites myself, primarily to scan and see if students are cheating. So I went on Chegg and I found somebody actually photocopied my exam question, that specific question, and asked for help. They got an answer from Chegg, and several students accessed that, copied it, but virtually copied and pasted it. I mean, like plagiarized almost word for word this problem. The problem was a proof, so it was very wordy and very easy to see that. I found that on Chegg and was able to determine that several students had plagiarized their answers. Now, I know for exams, because we're not taking this course in person, I'm not able to sit there and monitor every student and determine if they're cheating or not. I realize that I'm not able to do that. However, and for that reason, I'm not saying students can't use textbooks, can't use notes, things like that. I am asking that you don't utilize online resources and that you don't communicate with other students. About the exam. So if I find that a student has plagiarized, an exam answer, or if I have that suspicion and I'm able to confirm it by finding their answer online somewhere, that's a 0 for the whole test. I take that pretty seriously, and I really, really recommend against going that route. I realize it's tempting and easy to do. It's absolutely not worth getting the 0 on the exam. And like I said, I just had an example in my summer class where that happened. So you don't want that to happen to you. Okay, I don't need to beat you over the head with that anymore. Let's move on. Last thing to cover, students with learning or physical disabilities or any special needs should let me know as soon as possible about any accommodations that they need. Ignore this part in the parentheses. This would apply if we were meeting in person. Because we're doing online for this course, a lot of the accommodations that students would typically need in a classroom setting don't really apply here. But there are several examples where you might need an accommodation, usually in the form of extended test time. So if that's you, if you've gotten your accommodation approved through our DSPS office at Sac City, then I need the paperwork from DSPS that tells me that accommodation has been approved, so I can provide that for you. So that's basically what this is referring to here. If that's not you, you don't need to worry about it, but if you know that you've gone through DSPS to get an accommodation approved, make sure I get that paperwork, because I can't do anything until I have that. Okay? Whew. I'm a little out of breath. So that's everything. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at the email address on the first page of the syllabus. And other than that, I'm looking forward to a great semester.